strike before they compete with you, casually draw attention to something they do. You've got a unique speaking style. It's interesting. Or your posture is different than most people's, confident or nervous. Or you always do that thing with your hands, habit or strategy. None of these are insults. They're nudges, tiny surgical comments that activate self-consciousness. Now, when they enter the arena, they're no longer present. They're in their head, second-guessing everything they do. And that is the beginning of self-collapse. Confidence thrives when a person feels exceptional. So the trick is simple. Make them feel ordinary. Even if they're good, even if they've achieved something, you shatter it by quietly comparing them to someone greater. You remind me of X. He was on another level, but similar energy. Or, this is impressive. Still not as sharp as that girl from last year, but definitely solid. Or, oh, you're doing this? Interesting. I saw someone else dominate with that style once. Now they no longer feel like the protagonist. They feel like a replacement, a watered-down version of someone better. And when that feeling sets in, they stop playing to win. They start playing to prove they're good enough. And that shift kills their edge. One of the darkest tricks in Machiavelli's arsenal was overloading the enemy with preparation. You do this by subtly suggesting that you're far more dangerous than you appear. You probably did your homework on me. I wouldn't blame you. Or I've done this a few too many times. I get bored if it's not challenging. Or hope you're not underestimating what you're walking into. You're not telling them what you will do. You're telling them how much they should fear it. Now they spiral. They overthink. They rehearse too much. They become rigid. They start obsessing over the outcome before the game has begun. This is psychological suffocation. And it causes people to walk into confrontation already exhausted. The best part is that you didn't even raise your voice. You didn't make a move. You simply planted a seed of doubt, one that grows bigger and faster in their mind with every passing moment. As they prepare to confront you, their confidence begins to erode because they've already anticipated failure. Their minds race, obsessing over potential setbacks, reworking their plans until they become stifled by overpreparation. They've already set up a battleground in their battleground that has nothing to do with the reality of the situation. This psychological trap leaves them with no room for improvisation or adaptation, and when they finally step into the arena, they are overwhelmed by their own caution. They start second-guessing every decision, checking and rechecking their moves, hoping that their preparation will safeguard them. But in the end, it's their overthinking that makes them brittle, vulnerable to the unpredictability you bring to the table. They walk into the fight already beaten by their own mind. And that's the greatest power of all, a silent victory before the battle even begins. This overpreparation traps them in a mental loop. They're no longer thinking about how to win or how to execute their best strategy. Instead, they're obsessing over how to avoid any mistake. And the more they focus on avoiding failure, the less they are able to focus on what actually matters: winning. Every step they take is calculated with extreme caution, and as a result, their performance becomes mechanical and predictable. They've built an impenetrable wall of preparation, but within it, they've trapped their own confidence. The more time they spend on analysis, the more they begin to lose the natural flow of their instincts. They've been taught that if they prepare enough, they can control the outcome. But in trying to control every variable, they forget the most important one: themselves. You've created a battlefield inside their mind where they're no longer able to move freely. Every decision is made with hesitation, and every move is weighed down with the pressure of expectation. This is what Machiavelli understood so well: the preparation trap. When an opponent is overwhelmed with the need to control every detail, they become fragile. Their actions are dictated by fear of making the wrong move, not the desire to make the right one. Over time, their fear turns into hesitation, and hesitation turns into weakness. The worst part of this strategy is that you don't have to do anything at all to cause this. You simply plant the seed of doubt, making them believe that they are walking into a situation far more dangerous than they anticipated. It's as if you've shown them a shadow of yourself, a version they fear, a version that they are unprepared to face. Their minds run wild, spiraling into worst-case scenarios. And by the time they finally face you, they're already exhausted from their mental preparations. They've already lost the energy they need to succeed because they've been trapped by their own anxiety. The result? You win before the competition even begins. This strategy works on the premise of psychological exhaustion. Your opponent becomes drained before they ever enter the fight, constantly battling an invisible enemy created by their own mind. The more they prepare, the more they build their own prison. The more they fear the outcome, the more they lose sight of their own potential. And when they finally step into the arena, they are already defeated, caught in the trap of their own making. One of the most Machiavellian tools in social warfare is the well-timed compliment. Not sincere, not generous, just ambiguous enough to make them question your intention. Try these. You're better than I expected. Or, this might actually be close. Or, you've improved a lot since I last saw you. These sound like encouragement, but what they are really saying is that you didn't expect much, that you see them as lesser, that you are the standard. Suddenly, they feel small again because they realize they're still chasing your approval, not competing, not dominating, just chasing. That's when their confidence dies quietly in their own chest. It's the psychological equivalent of a cold knife delivered with the gentleness of praise, but cutting deep. The brilliance of this tactic lies in the subtleness. They believe you are complimenting them, boosting their confidence, yet beneath the surface, you've just reminded them that they still fall short of your expectations. They can't help but wonder, what are they missing? What could they have done better? Even if they've reached a certain level of success, it suddenly feels insignificant compared to the standard you set. They've become obsessed, not with achieving greatness, but with earning your approval, with proving they are worthy in your eyes. And as they start to question their place, they lose sight of their own identity. They stop playing to win. They start playing to prove they're good enough. This shift, while subtle, is disastrous for their self-assurance, because it moves them from a place of action and confidence into a state of insecurity and validation seeking. The more they try to prove themselves, the more their confidence evaporates. They become trapped in a cycle of self-doubt, constantly second-guessing every move they make. And in this state, they are already defeated. Their power has been drained, not by confrontation, but by suggestion. But the true Machiavellian genius is in how the well-timed compliment strikes a balance between praise and undermining. These compliments come across as positive, but what they do, in reality, is leave the target with the nagging feeling that they are still not good enough. They begin to ask themselves, what would have made this compliment sincere? The answer is that their best will never be enough to meet your standard. This kind of compliment plants a seed that grows over time, slowly eating away at their self-esteem until they are no longer playing to succeed, but merely to avoid failure. Their drive shifts from pursuing their best work to desperately trying to prove that they belong in the same league as you. The compliment also has another layer. It creates a sense of competition between the target and the imaginary benchmark you've set. By reminding them that they are close, you essentially tell them that they are on the right path, but not quite there yet. It's a subtle hint that they need to do more, that they need to be better to truly impress you. This opens the door for the competitor to become fixated on reaching a level of perfection that may not even exist, a perfection that only lives in your mind. They start putting in more effort, exerting more energy, but because they never truly get the validation they seek, their work becomes a series of hollow victories. They are working tirelessly to meet an elusive ideal, and, in doing so, they burn themselves out. Their drive becomes their enemy, and you become the unattainable standard that keeps them chasing endlessly. In a world where most people crave recognition and validation, you can use this knowledge to manipulate the flow of power. The well-timed compliment is an invisible thread that keeps your competition bound to you, constantly looking for approval, validation, and the moment when they finally meet your standard. The moment they do, however, will never come. And it's this realization slowly dawning that erodes their confidence piece by piece. In the end, the key to this strategy is that it is not about overtly breaking them down, but rather about making them feel as though they are always falling short. You never need to put them down. You don't need to insult them. You simply need to make them feel like they are always 2 steps behind. This slow erosion of confidence is even more effective than a direct assault. Over time, they will come to believe they're not worthy of standing in the same space as you. They will no longer see themselves as your equal. Instead, they will see themselves as inferior. Their desperation to earn your approval, to prove they can match your standard, will become a self-imposed prison that hinders their growth and robs them of their authenticity. In social environments, silence is terrifying because when everyone's speaking and one person is just watching, that person owns the room. Machiavelli would walk into a setting and say less. Speak only when necessary and hold eye contact just long enough to make people wonder what he's thinking. When your competitor tries to joke, don't laugh. When they share plans, just nod. When they look to you for a response, delay it. This breaks their rhythm because now you're the mystery, and people fear what they can't read. Your silence becomes a mirror. They project their worst fears onto it, and those fears become louder than your words ever could be. Silence creates an atmosphere of unease and uncertainty, making it impossible for others to gauge your intentions. In a world filled with noise, a person who is composed and silent can seem like a force of nature, someone who isn't concerned with validation or approval. Your mere presence becomes a question, and that question undermines their confidence. The power of silence lies in its ability to disrupt expectations. People expect you to react, to engage, to conform to the conversation. But when you do nothing, when you remain composed, you force them to question why you are unfazed. Are they not interesting enough? Are they failing to meet your standards? The lack of response from you creates a void in which their anxieties and self-doubts grow. This is how silence becomes an active weapon. It's a constant reminder that you don't need to engage to control the room, and that can break their rhythm, shatter their confidence, and disorient them in the process. The more they try to fill the silence, the more they give you power. You don't need to say a word to win. You simply need to remain still, calm, and let their insecurities drive them into confusion. A man's confidence isn't just built on inner beliefs. It's reinforced by his circle, the people who hype him up. So, what if you subtly infect that circle? You don't need to turn their friends into enemies. Just plant quiet seeds of doubt. Compliment their friends more. Subtly question the competitor's choices in front of them. Say things like, "You've got sharp people around you. You'll need that." Now their friends start second-guessing them. They begin treating the competitor as someone who needs help, not someone who leads. When their inner circle stops radiating confidence, it shatters from the inside. The competitor starts doubting even the people closest to them. And when that happens, you've fractured the last line of their defense. This tactic operates on a psychological level, deeper than just isolating someone. By subtly changing how others perceive your competitor, you create a web of doubt that surrounds them. The once solid, supportive network now begins to crumble. The competitor's allies no longer provide the reassurance they once did. Instead, they're filled with uncertainty, questioning their own decisions, judgment, and loyalty. Slowly but surely, the foundation of support they relied upon starts to erode. It's not just about creating external doubt in your opponent. It's about making them doubt the very people they trust the most. This method breaks down the walls of confidence from the inside out, ensuring that by the time your competitor recognizes what's happening, the damage is already done. As their circle shifts and fractures, their internal confidence begins to break down. They're no longer able to rely on others to reassure them, and without that external validation, they begin questioning their worth, their ability, and their position. This strategy ensures that your competitor becomes their own worst enemy, self-sabotaging under the weight of their own paranoia and doubt. The most dangerous thing you can do to a person is not attack them directly, it's to make them feel alone, unsupported, and uncertain of those around them. This is the essence of undermining their confidence and leaving them vulnerable. This is Machiavelli's final most disturbing rule. Never acknowledge the competition. The second you publicly recognize someone as a rival, you elevate them. You say, "We are equals." But you say nothing. You behave as if you're operating in a different tier, that what they do is irrelevant to your path. You don't chase. You don't compare. You don't even care. Nothing destroys a challenger's confidence more than this cold truth. They don't even see me as a threat. That's the knife. Not in their back, but in their identity. And it cuts deeper than any insult could. This tactic isn't just about ignoring your competitor. It's about denying them recognition in a way that renders their existence irrelevant to you. When you fail to acknowledge someone's competitive existence, you rob them of their significance. They don't matter in your world, And that's the most humiliating thing you can do to them. By refusing to recognize them as competition, you place them in a mental cage. They are not your rival. They are a mere afterthought, a distraction that does not even warrant your attention. This psychological disempowerment begins the moment you act as though their presence has no effect on you. When you act like your journey is independent of their actions, you create an insurmountable gap between the two of you. They see themselves fighting to gain recognition from you, but you never grant them that validation. The most insidious part of this strategy is that your competitor begins to question their own worth. If you're not acknowledging them, if you don't even deem them worthy of recognition, then what does that say about their position in the grand scheme of things? They begin to feel insignificant, like their efforts are futile. Their ambition fades, because they realize that your path doesn't need theirs to succeed. This method works because it feeds into their deepest insecurities. When a person is constantly seeking validation and never receives it, they start to question their abilities, their achievements, and their purpose. It breaks them down from the inside, leading them to doubt their own value in relation to yours. This is the ultimate psychological sabotage, denying someone not only the acknowledgement of their efforts, but the very existence of their significance in your world. And it does more damage than any verbal confrontation or direct attack could ever achieve. You don't need to degrade them. You don't need to insult them. All you need to do is behave as if they don't even exist in your world. The failure to acknowledge your competitor, to recognize their efforts as anything more than a passing occurrence, turns their fight into a futile one. They will exhaust themselves, trying harder and harder, in hopes that you will finally take notice. But when that day never comes, they are left with nothing but self-doubt. They question their identity, their mission, and their worth. The absence of acknowledgement is the final blow, for it breaks their spirit in a way no direct confrontation could. As the competition continues, your silence speaks louder than any insult. You've redefined the rules of the game. The opponent is no longer focused on winning. They are focused on trying to earn the recognition they crave. They've shifted their focus from competing with you to begging for validation from you. And in doing so, they've lost sight of their original goal. Now, they are not in the fight for success, they are in the fight for acceptance. And that shift in mindset means they will never be able to compete at the highest level. This is how the Machiavellian elite wins. Not through battle, not through confrontation, but through a silent campaign of erosion. They don't beat you. They rearrange the battlefield. So by the time you arrive, you don't even believe in your own weapons anymore. The throne is already theirs, and you never had the strength to climb. True power doesn't confront it. Machiavelli never sought victory through brute force. He sought it by shaping the battlefield inside the opponent's head. He believed that once a person starts questioning themselves in your presence, the war is already over. They're no longer trying to win, they're trying not to lose. This psychological erosion is the slowest, most insidious form of control because it doesn't require direct action. It chips away at your sense of self-worth, your confidence, and your ability to see a path to victory. The key to Machiavelli's genius was in his ability to subtly guide his opponent's thoughts and perceptions in such a way that they no longer trusted their own instincts. They no longer believed in the strength of their own strategy. The true power lies in turning the competition into a battle of wills within the mind. When you can make your opponent doubt their abilities, their decisions, and their judgment, you've already won. The confrontation becomes secondary, irrelevant. They enter the game already defeated, because they can no longer trust their own sense of purpose. Every move they make is under a microscope of self-doubt, and every step forward is clouded by their fear of failure. This erosion occurs in the subtle moments, the unspoken actions that plant seeds of doubt in the opponent's mind. You don't need to confront them head-on. You simply need to guide them into a mental labyrinth, where every corner they turn leads to more uncertainty. They will begin second-guessing themselves. They'll start hesitating at every decision, unsure of whether it's the right path. This paralysis is what gives you control when their mind is fragmented and uncertain. They can no longer act with purpose. And when they stop acting decisively, they become irrelevant. The mental warfare is the ultimate battleground, where the strongest force is not one that attacks, but one that makes its opponent's thoughts their own worst enemy. The real victory is not in defeating someone through aggression or direct confrontation. It's in making them question their own value, their own position, and their own power. Once they begin to doubt themselves, Their drive to win fades, and the fight becomes a struggle for survival. They no longer pursue victory, they merely try to avoid humiliation. And in that shift, they lose the very essence of what makes them a threat. Their confidence is shattered not by external pressure, but by their own internal collapse. It's not the battle that breaks them, it's the self-doubt that has taken root within them. Machiavelli's true brilliance lies in his understanding that to defeat someone, you don't need to fight them head-on. You need to defeat their will to fight. By consistently planting doubts, offering subtle criticisms, and making them question their own competence, you slowly destroy their belief in themselves. This isn't about making them weaker in a physical sense. It's about disempowering them in the only way that truly matters. In their mind, once their mental foundation crumbles, they become nothing more than an empty shell of their former self, incapable of mounting a meaningful challenge. The Machiavellian approach makes the competition obsolete, not because you overpower them, but because you make them surrender the fight themselves. And when they give up mentally, you've already won without a single confrontation. Their collapse will happen silently, unnoticed, and the victory will be yours before they even realize they've lost. It is the ultimate psychological warfare, the battle where the enemy never even knows they are defeated, and the battlefield is nothing more than their own mind.